Hi, welcome to another month of Riverside Monthly. I'm your host, as always, Steve Brazel, joined by the mayor for the city of Riverside, California, Mayor Rusty Bailey. How are you, sir?
Here we go again, my friend. I'm fabulous.
It's such a great month that we've got coming up, and I love this time of year in Southern California and in Riverside, and we've got some key topics to talk about this time. What are we going to be discussing?
We got a potpourri of topics, including Stop the Bleed Day, changes to the city's election cycle, and Arlington Temporary Assistance's 100-year anniversary, Steve.
100 years servicing people here in the Riverside community. We've got some great guests lined up this month as well. If people want to reach out to you, where can they go?
Twitter, Mayor_Bailey, and Facebook, City Riverside Mayor. Bring it on.
Sounds good. So that's Riverside Monthly for this month. We've got 3 segments for you. Make sure you check out each one. I'm Steve Brazel. We'll see you then. Hi, once again. Welcome to Riverside Monthly, the show where we discuss topics and issues that are of interest to the citizens of the city of Riverside, California, and the surrounding areas. As always, I'm your host, Steve Brazel, and as always, I'm joined by the mayor for the city of Riverside, California, Mayor Rusty Bailey. How are you, sir?
Steve, I'm fabulous, as always.
You look wonderful, as always.
It's great to be with you.
It's good to be with you as well, and we are joined by a guest this segment.
Really?
And this month, we've got some great things that we're going to be discussing. We're going to be talking about the election cycle at this point and how we are changing the election cycle in the city of Riverside to comply with state law. And we're joined by the Riverside City Clerk, Colleen Nickel. How are you?
I'm very great. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, you look beautiful today.
She happens to be my favorite city clerk in all of Riverside. You know that? And you know what? All of the world.
I was going to say, why limit
Not
this?
just in Riverside. She is my favorite city clerk worldwide.
No wonder I love my job.
Yeah, see? Because we all work together in the city.
She is the only city clerk in Riverside, too.
Well, yeah, exactly. But Colleen, we've got so many questions for you on some of the changes that are happening, because I'm going to be honest, until I saw some of the notes for today, and I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Riverside, I didn't know about some of these changes, and they do affect both how we vote for our elected officials, when we vote for the elected officials in the city, and for that matter, if somebody wants to become an elected official. Right. Mayor, I think you've got a question.
Yeah, well, you know, of course, that I was a city councilman prior to becoming the mayor and reelected once into that Ward 3 position. But can you tell us about elections, generally speaking, whether the terms of office, are there limited or unlimited terms for elected officials in Riverside?
Very common questions. So the terms are for 4 years, and in Riverside, there are no term limits whatsoever. Some cities have that, but not in Riverside. So Mayor Loveridge was a great example of that. He served for many years.
The longest-serving mayor in the history of Riverside, 19 years.
Popular mayor, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good predecessor. Anyway.
So we've got 4 years for terms, and it's been that way for a long time, but we are doing changes now. Why are we doing these changes?
Well, voter turnout is always a concern. So the state legislature a few years ago did something about that, and they asked all cities that have standalone elections, didn't just ask, required that they consolidate their elections with statewide general elections where the turnout is generally higher. So Riverside is a charter city, and like other charter cities, some of them, in our charter, it says these shall be your election dates, which are not statewide election dates for city council members.
So we don't line up with the state right now.
At this point, we don't, no.
But
and
we are innovative in the way that we did the last 2 mayoral elections. The Charter Review Committee, which I sat on, that's when I first met you. Remember those good days? Married up the mayoral cycle with the presidential cycle. So I was the first mayor that went through in 2012 a presidential cycle, and that turned out, I mean, that was incredible turnout that year because of, this change momentum, and Obama came in, and so I don't know if you want to talk about that at all. That was kind of an interesting change too.
And actually, while you're talking about that, Colleen, I'm curious, does that affect the voter turnout?
It's the number of people that show up to the polls has everything to do with what's on the ballot. So if you've got a president and all these vice president and all these national and state leaders on there, there's a lot more public interest, and so they'll come out. If you have a mayor or a city council on there and it's a standalone election and that's the only races that they see, there's not as much voter interest, unfortunately. So this
Good turnout was like 35, maybe up to 40% in a mayoral, local election. But when you have a national election, it typically is over 50%. And I think it got to 60%.
I believe it did. It did
Wow,
cross
that's
the
high.
60% mark. We've had runoff elections that were standalone that were in the teens or the 20s in a turnout,
Yeah.
just regrettably very low.
Wow. So from the next election cycle is 2019 now, right? So I'm kind of curious, 2019 is a ways away. Why start the information campaign this early?
Well, to sort of follow up on my comments earlier, Riverside's charter says when our election shall be for the council in odd-numbered years. And a recent attorney, a general opinion, said, you know what, charter cities, even though your charter dictates when your election shall be, I believe that this new law should apply to you also. And so charter cities just got on board, including Riverside, and said, we need to move our elections and we'll tidy up the charter at the next charter review cycle. But now our elections for city council members will also be on statewide election dates, which are June and November of even-numbered years rather than the odd-numbered years.
What does that mean for the existing elected officials that are in office now?
Well, they were elected to 4-year terms, and the city council recently had the decision before them. How are we going to shift
Right.
by 1 year? So either somebody's term has to be extended by 1 year or shortened by 1 year. And this council decided that the voters elected them for a 4-year term,
Yep.
and that's the term that they would serve. So
Makes
to
sense.
remedy
Yeah.
and make the shift, they set the schedule for future elections that the next election for council members in each cycle would be for 5-year terms. And a good thing about the advertising now, to get back to your question, is the voters now have lots of information very early on about when these elections will occur. But it also affects candidates. So the candidates start planning
now they
very
know
early
they-
as
they-
the
they get
mayor
5 years.
can
Oh, okay.
testify.
Right.
So they can start preparing their campaigns and getting ready for the election, and they know which year it's going to occur in.
There's one thing I'm confused on, and maybe it's just because I confuse easily. It's a 5-year term for the next elections. Is that a one-time thing simply to get us on the right cycle? Or are they 5-year terms from here on out? Or is it 5 years one time and then we go back to 4?
It will be 5 years one time, then back to 4, because
Okay.
once we do the 5, then we'll be
On the right cycle.
even-numbered cycle, and we'll stay there with 4-year terms.
Okay.
And where can people go to get more information about elections, generally speaking, and specifically on this change?
I love talking elections, so they're welcome to call me at my office. It's 951-826-5557, and we have information on our website, too,
And
on
you got
the
a card
city's
there, too, that we're
website.
sending out, aren't we?
Everyone got a postcard in the mail,
Yeah,
every single registered
every.
voter, so households may have received more than one, depends on how many registered voters you have there in the household, and it explains, not in legalese, but in a nice, graphic, colorful way. It's easy to tell, and
You see it
there's
there,
the postcard
folks?
there,
All right.
and it tells you when the elections are coming.
Habla español?
How the mayor's
In Espanol as well.
it is as well. It also shows how the mayor's election cycle fits in with the council. So
Colleen, I so appreciate your being here because, again, until I saw some of the notes for this conversation that we were going to have today, and I started kind of researching it, I was not aware of this. And it is nice as a resident of the city of Riverside to know this early so that I can plan, so that I can make sure that I get out and vote. And it's going to be nice that we'll have those key national and statewide elections at the same time. So again, thank you very much to Colleen Nickel, the city clerk for the
My
city of
favorite
Riverside.
city clerk.
The favorite city clerk for the city of Riverside. Also to Mayor Bailey for
got it.
joining us today. My name is Steve Brazel, your host. This is Riverside Monthly, and again, all month long we have different segments. Make sure that you check them all out, and we'll see you on the next one. Hi, once again. Welcome to another segment of Riverside Monthly. I'm your host, Steve Brazel, joined as always by the mayor for the city of Riverside, California. It's Mayor Rusty Bailey. Mayor, how are you today?
That's what I am. I am the mayor. And
You
I'm
are
here
the
today.
mayor. And you are here today, yes.
And it is a monthly show we've got, Steve.
A
I'm back.
beautiful Riverside, Southern California day. Love this time of year. We've got a great topic this time around. In fact, all month. This month, we're going to be talking about changes to the city's election cycle, the Arlington Temporary Assistance Program's 100-year anniversary. And for this segment, we're going to be talking about a national event, Stop the Bleed Day, and we've got a couple of guests with us. AVP Marketing and Communications for Riverside Community Hospital, Cherie Crutcher. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for
Thanks so
having us
much
here.
for joining us. Also, sitting here to my right, Trauma Injury Prevention Outreach Coordinator for Riverside Community Hospital, Wendy McEwen.
Thank you for having us. So happy to be here to talk about Stop the Bleed.
Yeah, it's such a great cause, and we've got some questions on, because, again, national. It's not just a Riverside thing.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
national
Right.
thing,
Yeah,
right,
what's
Mayor?
the scope of this problem? Can you educate us and the public about how big a problem we have?
So the Stop the Bleed campaign is a nationwide effort designed to reduce the number of preventable deaths. As the Stop the Bleed campaign addresses that uncontrollable bleeding
Yeah.
is the number one cause.
The number one.
The number one
Wait,
cause
say
of
that
preventable
again?
deaths. It's the number one cause of preventable deaths in our nation. And
Stop
key,
the bleed, Steve. That's
Wow.
Will save lives. Obviously,
That's
why
a
we're here.
stat more people need to know.
Well, the Stop the Bleed is a campaign that was that began in 2013, and our organization joined this national campaign in an effort to help educate our community and to bring awareness.
Thank you.
And the key word within that phrase is that it's preventable.
Yes.
It's preventable, and that's where we're trying to bring awareness.
Thank
So,
you.
so Wendy, I'm curious. Obviously, it's a national thing. It's a serious thing. But how do we communicate to viewers and the public? How do we get them to understand the seriousness of this?
Well, I think getting public buy-in, such as from the City of Riverside, other agencies like Riverside Police Department, schools, school districts, so that we can get the word out and more people become familiar with it, we can get them trained and get the resources out in the community. So in the event of some type of injury that requires immediate attention, they'll have everything they need. They'll have the knowledge, they'll have the supplies, and they'll know what to do.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And tell us more, Cherie. You said this is a nationwide, issue, right? You're working with some heavy hitters,
Big names.
big leagues. You're in the big leagues. Can you tell us more about working with the Department of Defense, National Security Council, American College of Surgeons? I mean, this is a big deal.
Yeah, so those are the organizations that actually started the campaign. And so hospitals nationwide have actually joined and partnered together to bring awareness throughout the nation. And our hospital was one of the organizations who actually came aboard
Yeah.
to help bring awareness to our city and throughout the Inland Empire region. And so it's our goal. Riverside Community Hospital is a level 2 trauma center, and we see traumas from all over the
Right,
Inland
right.
Empire. And so everything from, when we're dealing with mass casualties or large trauma accidents and things like that.
Right.
And so our effort is to bring awareness and then partnering with the
Stop the Bleed.
the
Yeah.
Stop the Bleed campaign is to bring awareness that your normal bystander can help save a life by learning the education and having the tools on how to stop uncontrollable bleeding
Yeah.
in the case
Yeah.
while waiting for the emergency team to get to the scene.
So, when we're talking about Stop the Bleed and uncontrollable bleeding in this campaign as a whole, for either one of you really, and this may be a difficult question to answer. I don't know the end result of this. What does success in this program look like? Right? I mean, in other words, you understand what I mean? What's the overall goal to reach from a success point of view?
Well, I think the goal is to be able to share the knowledge so people have it, be able to have the kits available out in community areas like malls and airports and the city buildings and things like that, which may be a high target area. And hopefully they never have to use it, but at least they'll have the knowledge, and if they're put in that situation, they'll know what to do.
You said the word kit. What's a kit?
So the Stop the Bleed, there's many different manufacturers, but bleedingcontrol.org, which is the government agency who kind of runs the Stop the Bleed program, they have kits that include obviously gloves for protection,
Okay.
hemostatic gauze, which is impregnated with a substance that helps the blood clot faster, so you would put that in a wound.
Tourniquets, probably.
And tourniquets.
Okay.
And so everything is readily available. Someone who's taken one of my classes can grab a kit and they'll know what to do.
Well, there you go. Now that we know about the kits and there's classes out there, tell us more about the education. I know
Right.
you've educated some high school students and some college students at Norco College, Centennial, Arlington, Ramona, Riverside Police Department. Tell us more about that.
So I've been lucky enough to partner with a lot of the great agencies here in the city. The police department, most recently, we trained all of
Good.
their the
Thank
city
you.
officers. They all have their own kits now that are available. I've reached out to the high schools, and we're going into a lot of their medical classes. I've went to the Model T Club. They asked me
Yeah.
to come out. It's just really
It's everywhere.
growing
Yeah.
exponentially as people again become more aware. Unfortunately, the initial campaign, once it was launched, didn't get a lot of promotion, and so kind of as a trauma
So here
center,
we are.
here I am out there
Yeah.
trying to get the word out so people become familiar, can come to one of my classes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Where do people go for info? Because you made the comment that the Model T Club reached out to you. So people can reach out and request to be trained in this. Where do they go?
Exactly. You can go to riversidecommunityhospital.com. We have links to our trauma center there. I do monthly classes, and I also make myself available to go out and do community events. I go to clubs. Pretty much anybody that will have me, I go out there. It's a free service, and we get people prepared to know what they need to do in the event of some type of injury.
Sheree, closing remarks?
And yeah, and if I may bring it back just for a second, with this information this is a serious topic right now. And with the recent incident yesterday with the
Yeah,
South
with the school,
Florida
yeah.
school shooting,
Right.
Our recent Las Vegas shooting, the Texas incident, these mass casualties are happening more frequently, and it's a serious case. And so making sure that us as a city that we're prepared, making sure that
Yep.
our school districts, our
Right.
teachers, our
Right.
students, and the purpose of the organization with the Stop the Bleed campaign is they wanted to make sure that those high targeted organizations, such as
Right.
your city buildings,
Right.
your airports, your
Right.
malls, your schools, that your volunteers, your securities, your police officers, all of them were trained
Yes.
in
Yeah.
the Stop the Bleed campaign on how having knowing those techniques that can help save a person's life.
That's the bottom line.
And that's,
That's
the
the
bottom
bottom
Saving
line.
lives.
And Stop the Bleed Day is
March 31st. That is Martha
31st.
Nash, so.
So again, thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank our guests. We've got AVP Marketing and Communications for Riverside Community Hospital, Sheree Crutcher. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
coming
so
by.
much for having
Also,
us.
Wendy McEwen. She is the Trauma Injury Prevention Outreach Coordinator, Riverside Community Hospital. Thank you. She's the one that will come out and do the training. And of course, Mayor, thanks for joining us
You got
as
it.
well.
We'll do it again.
This is another episode of Riverside Monthly with Mayor Bailey. I'm your host, Steve Brazel. Each and every episode that happens, you can find on the Facebook page for the City of Riverside, the Mayor's Facebook page, the YouTube page. Make sure you check them all out, and we'll see you on the next one.
Riverside's about to get a little quieter thanks to the new Quiet Zone project. The plan is to reduce train horn noise by eliminating the need for locomotives to sound them. With less train noise, that means residents will have to be extra careful when walking or driving near train crossings, because although the lights will still flash and bells will sound, the train will not blow the horn unless the conductor sees a hazard near the tracks, like people, animals, or vehicles. Get info and safety tips at our website.
Hi, once again, welcome to another segment of Riverside Monthly, the show where we discuss the topics of interest to the citizens and residents of the city of Riverside, California, and the surrounding areas. I'm your host, as always, Steve Brazel, joined by the Honorable Mayor for the city of Riverside,
Wow.
California.
Man, that was a
Mayor
nice
Rusty
intro.
Bailey.
Honorable now. Thank you.
I've got
I
your back.
appreciate that.
Yes, that's what I'm here for. How are you,
Respectful.
sir?
I am fabulous. It's a beautiful day in Riverside.
It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful time of year in Southern California. A beautiful day here in the Inland Empire. And all month long on Riverside Monthly, we're discussing a number of different topics. We're going to talk about the changes to the city's election cycle. That'll affect all of us. We're going to talk about March 31st, which is Stop the Bleed Day. And for this segment, the Arlington Temporary Assistance Program's 100th anniversary. 100 years.
Not many of those occur in
No.
Riverside, much less the country, right?
And
100
we're
years.
joined by two great guests for this segment.
Amen.
Council Member Emeritus and Arlington Temporary Assistance Board Member and Board President, if I'm not mistaken, right? Nancy Hart. Nancy, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome, and thank you for having us. It's lovely to talk about Arlington Temporary.
Nancy comes down. I MC the summer concerts at Fairmount Park, and Nancy is always down there enjoying the concerts as well. It's so good to see you again. Also joined by Ophelia Ortega. She is the Arlington Temporary Assistance Program Director. Ophelia, thanks for joining us as well.
Thank you for having us here this morning.
We've got questions because in the city of Riverside, right, Mayor?
Yes.
We do not have a lot of programs that service our residents 100-year anniversary.
No, this is an incredible feat. And, just think how many individuals and families have been served by this organization over those 100 years. What a blessing.
Yes,
What
yes.
a blessing. And so the first question, Nancy, to you is, I think the number is 2,400 Riverside residents per year, children, families, elderly, disadvantaged. How did the organization get started? Why is it here?
I'm going to have to let Ophelia
Sure,
know
yeah.
that. She's not 100. But
She doesn't look 100 either.
however,
looks great.
she has
Yeah.
all the information.
But she has the knowledge
Yes.
of all
Yes.
those years.
Yeah,
yes.
Ophelia, fine.
It's my understanding that Arlington Temporary Assistance was founded by a group of concerned citizens in the community who noticed there was a homeless family living in a car. So what they did is they gathered their resources together and they helped this family. And then soon after, they noticed there was more families
Yeah.
needing assistance. So after that, they formed a nonprofit organization, and I believe the first time they got funding from the United Way was in the 1940s.
Thank you, United Way.
Yeah, thanks to the United Way. I have a board member who received a food basket from Arlington Temporary Assistance some 60 years ago.
And they're a board member now?
Wow.
A board member.
So see, this is what's
Yeah.
fascinating. This was somebody who simply looked at somebody living in their car, right? It was one group of people that just looked at somebody and reached out to help, and it turned into this amazing thing. And it's an organization that now is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you are supported through donations, private business, private donors, charitable organizations. You also do rummage sales. But again, it's been going for 100 years at this point, and a lot of the methodology that was used to raise money back then is completely different now. So for either one of you, how does an organization like this stay effective in this community for so long?
Well, I can help with that. There are people out there that need help. The idea is to get them help. And no matter how much you would like to help everybody that needs it, you can't. And you can't certainly do it by yourself. And so you need to reach out to organizations, and you need to reach out to people. And that's the difficult part when you're a small organization with just 5 or 6 people on the board, to find the expertise to go out
Right.
and reach out. And this is one of the reasons that I love doing this program, for that very same reason, so that we can reach
Yes.
out that way without costing us money, because there are monthly fees and insurance for your
Right.
people that just keep coming whether you get any money or not.
Right. So,
To
And-
bring awareness
Yeah.
to the program itself.
Exactly.
so the power of one,
Yes.
okay, turned
Yeah.
into now the power of 100
Yes.
years, right?
And when my children were small and I was in PTA, one of the first organizations that I helped get canned food for
Yeah.
Christmas was to Arlington Temporary, because Norte Vista and Arlanza and Wells are all in the same area, and they all feed in, and that's where our families, a lot of them come from.
That's right. That's the center many times of the family unit is at the schools. And so recently you came to the city council meeting and talked about this, and you mentioned some organizations that are partners. As you said,
Yes.
you can't do it alone. So the Rotary Club, Norte Vista High School, Bryant Community Center, can you elaborate on those partners and what else you need there?
So I've been working for Arlington Temporary Assistance for 14 years now. And at the time, it was struggling, and we were really close to closing our doors. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go and do it the old-fashioned way. And I knocked on people's doors, wrote my letters. And, one of the things that donors tell me is they can appreciate you knocking on their doors because they can put a face with an
We know
organization.
something about knocking on doors, don't we?
And that's that personal
Yeah.
approach that started the organization to
Yeah.
begin with.
Yeah. And after maybe 20 no's, I got a couple of yeses, and that's how I met the Doug Albee from the Rotary Club.
Wow.
And he looked at me and said, "No, I'm not interested." And then he invited me to sit down, and after that, he invited me to one of the Rotary meetings.
Wow.
Out of that, the Rotary has been supporting Arlington Temporary Assistance for over 10 years.
That's awesome.
Then I met Richard Bennett from the Sunrise Rotary. Then they all came together and bought us a nice van.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They all put
What
their
a-
resources together and bought us a nice van. This past year, Richard Bennett from the Rotaries got us several computers, a printer, tires
It
for
keeps
our
coming.
van.
It keeps coming.
Yes.
Yeah, keeps coming. What about the
Then-
yard sale? Don't you do a yard sale?
Right, right.
Then once a month, we turn this place into We turn Arlington Temporary Assistance into a thrift store. These are items that would otherwise go in the trash, donated by Walmart and Target.
The businesses sound like
Yeah.
the businesses
Mm-hmm.
and organizations are really stepping up here.
Yeah.
Really, they're beginning to, yes.
And all with one paid staff member. I mean, how
Yeah,
is that possible?
that was my question too. Is how can you do this?
I started as one, and then now I have two assistants.
Okay.
they're not
But
paid.
it's equivalent of one person because we're all part-time. I work 30 to 40 hours a week. My assistant 20, and the gentleman that does the pickups works 18 hours a week. So it's minimal hours, but we all believe in what we do.
That's right.
So there's a lot of volunteer work.
Yeah. I think
well.
you already gave advice to other nonprofits watching or people that are interested in starting a nonprofit, but is there anything else?
Well, sometimes Ophelia doesn't even get paid. Sometimes there's not enough money to pay her, and so she gets in the arrears in her, and she doesn't make very much in the first place. But she is dedicated, like everybody on the board. They're dedicated people who want to see the families in the area succeed, and when our economy goes up, for those of
Right,
us who are
right.
grateful for that, many people fall off the bottom, and their rent goes up,
Right.
their utilities goes up, their bills go up. Our bills go up for Arlington Temporary just for the price of food and all
Right.
of that. And so you're sort of in a cycle, and you know that everything is better, but sometimes everything is worse.
So I'm
And
going
you
to make
don't-
it. I'm going to make a guess.
Yes,
People want to help.
I know.
Where do they go? Who do they call? Who do they email? How do they reach out to you guys to help? Businesses, individuals, whatever it is. Where do they go?
Well, they can come to our physical address at 9000 Arlington Avenue, Suite 112, or our P.O. Box 70136, Riverside, California 92513, or they can email us at ata1917@gmail.com.
Call
Perfect.
311. We're on their list.
Okay, good. 311.
so they're
one
on
call does it
311.
all.
One call does it all.
And ask
And-
for Arlington Temporary Assistance.
Yes.
Exactly. So that kind of brings us full circle, and that is just calling the city number.
Yep.
You can reach people like this because we are all one community, right? This
Amen.
is the city and surrounding areas of Riverside, California, and we're all neighbors. So if you want to help them out, hit pause on the video that you're watching.
You bet.
Back it up, write down the phone number or whatever, and reach out to these people.
Call
So again,
311.
Council Member Emeritus and Arlington Temporary Assistance Board Member Nancy Hart, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you
And
for having us.
Ophelia
Yeah,
Ortega,
thank
She knows
you.
everything.
for
Thank
doing
you.
what she does, Arlington Temporary Assistance Program Director, thank you so very much for all that you do. Mayor Bailey, thanks
You
for
got it.
joining us
We'll
as
see you
well.
again.
This is another episode of Riverside Monthly with Mayor Bailey. I'm your host, Steve Brazel. Again, watch all the episodes each and every month. Reach out, make a connection, and help the community that we all live in. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.